Interest rates and inflation are out of control. Is your credit card debt also out of control? It's time to resolve your debt and take back control for a lot less than what you owe. If you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt, then you need to call us right now. Debt Fix Pros can significantly reduce the amount you owe, and you could be debt-free faster than you think.
I knew we had to do something. Our debt was growing.
It was getting out of control, and we just didn't know what to do.
We saw an ad for Debt Fix Pros. We called, and they showed us how fast they could get us out of debt.
It really was amazing, and now we're back in control.
Call now, and we'll show you how easy it is to fix your debt. The call and consultation are free. Call Debt Fix Pros right now at 800-479-3522. That's 800-479-3522. 800-479-3522.
Welcome to the Turnpike Sports Spotlight. Dave Weishottle with you. SCCG Management has done it again. We've talked about their primers on esports and niche sports and sports betting, and now they have released a primer about what I think is the future of gaming in this country, and that is skill-based gaming. Stephen Crystal is a returning guest and is the founder and CEO of SCCG Management, and he is going to tell us all about SCCG's new primer on skill-based gaming and what it means for the gaming industry in this country, and we are lucky to have Steve on the line with us right now. Stephen, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much, Dave. Great to be here.
You know, whenever I talk to people in the gaming or casino industry, the subject of skill-based gaming comes up. I mean, for people out there who do not work in the casino or the gaming industry, when we use this term skill-based gaming, what are the types of games we're talking about?
In many respects, when we talk about skill-based gaming, it's both the future, as you highlighted, and it's very much the past.
Sure.
If you remember, you could download an app, and you could, in exchange for watching ads, you could download any number of apps and play word games. You could play trivia. You could play puzzle games or arcade-style games. You could play... you could go and get apps like Skills and Arcadium and Avia and Big Fish games, and you could play various mobile skill-based games. This has been around. Mm-hmm. What's changed is that now jurisdictions are regulating skill-based gaming so that we can actually have contests where peer-to-peer can be matched and they could play and there could be money wagered. This is what is evolving and exciting about skill-based games. And this is why we covered it in a primer.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. I mean, if you're a gaming operator and wants to make money off of skill-based gaming, the first challenge is convincing regulators in each state that a game should be certified for betting purposes. Unfortunately for operators, the concept of skill-based gaming is really different in each jurisdiction. When it comes to skill-based gaming, how difficult is the regulatory landscape for these operators who want skill-based gamings in sports books or in casinos and want to derive some revenue from these games?
Let's use two case studies, Dave. Let's use fantasy sports, which we all know,
sure,
and let's use poker, okay? If you look at fantasy sports, the two leaders back then and now, DraftKings and FanDuel, they started in an era, 15 years ago, where you went to a lawyer, got a legal opinion that said by picking a team against the salary cap, by picking a roster, and then seeing how that roster performed week by week, you were engaged in a game of skill. And until there was regulation, which there is now in 20-plus states for fantasy, you relied on that legal opinion to go and in essence, offer contests where the operator could take a vig, could take a piece of that activity. That worked until there were so many players in the space, and then the legislatures decide to step in and define what is fantasy sports as opposed to simply relying on the definition of a game of skill. And now we have two of our four major players in sports betting come from the fantasy world because they acquired the customers that are passionate about sports and betting on sports. In poker, basically it functioned under a skill-based definition until 2006, when the federal government said poker is neither a game of skill nor is it allowed in the U.S. And so it will come back, and that's what's driving this movement towards legislatures looking at skill-based gaming, because the intent is to bring poker back and bring it back under legislated definitions of skill-based gaming. So two different paths for two different types of skill-based games. We have sites like skills.com that have been offering, peer-to-peer gaming and mobile games for, over a decade. So we have a lot of examples out there, and what we're seeing until there is legislation, much like we've seen with fantasy and with poker before it was prohibited, we're seeing many, entrepreneurs and game enthusiasts coming to the market. Esports, which we've mentioned in the past, is also a form of skill-based peer-to-peer gaming. And the reason this is happening, Dave, the reason we cover it is because demographically, these different types of game sets apply to every demographic group across a broad spectrum. So they are appealing to customers in a way that is different than pure slots and table games that we're used to thinking of with casino gaming.
One of the fascinating aspects, for me anyway, regarding skill-based gaming is the technology that these operators are using, and some instances they're creating. I mean, I was talking to a company the other day that their gaming product is so advanced with regard to artificial intelligence technology that they actually received 2 patents on the process that they use to create their games. I mean, it's great for them, but they also said it creates a unique challenge, because they told me when they're talking to regulators, they just can't explain the game. They have to explain their technology behind the game to ensure regulators that the outcomes of their game are not random. When we're talking about skill-based gaming, is that the key when explaining them, that the outcomes are not random?
That's one of the keys, Dave. The other keys are integrity. You want to make sure that the result is the result. So it's basically a process by which you affirm that the result that has been achieved is the result. The other is to make sure that there's not, that there's a match of skill sets, and that's where AI in particular comes in, making sure that people who are of the same skill are matched. There's all kinds of ways using bots and other techniques to create an unfair advantage to someone in a skill-based context where there's a certain amount of anonymity. You're not actually with the player in a controlled environment. And so what regulators want to see is, how do you use technology to make sure it is a game of skill, number one, it is evenly matched and fair, and that it's accurate. And this is where AI and technology and mobile platforms of the ones we've mentioned come into play.
Give us an overview of the skill-based gaming industry in the U.S. I mean, it doesn't get the press that the sports betting does, but from talking with industry and casino professionals, it really is an emerging market. Those operators that specialize in skill-based gaming, are they profitable, and is it expected that their profits can rise in the coming year?
They're highly profitable. They're not highly regulated at all, which means they can operate without a lot of the costly KYC, AML, geofencing, a lot of the infrastructure that regulated online gambling or sports betting requires is not being deployed right now. Some of the more progressive skill-based gaming companies anticipating regulation are deploying some of this more expensive technology, but many of them don't. So it is quite lucrative. It includes everything from arcade games to skill-based card games, puzzle games, word games, trivia, fantasy sports, strategic games like dominoes, backgammon, chess, and poker. It includes esports, and it includes what I call casual games that have a relatively low skill base. It includes synchronous competition, peer-to-peer competition, and asynchronous competition with leaderboards, etc. It includes companies like Arcadium, Avia, Big Fish, and Skills, which we've mentioned. And basically, it appeals to every demographic. Mm-hmm. So if you're a young adult, 18 to 35, you're going to like esports and action-packed games. If you're a mature female over 35, you like casual games like Candy Crush and word puzzles. If you're 36 to 55, you're going to enjoy strategic and mind-challenging games. And older adults and retirees are drawn to classic board games that stimulate your cognitive abilities and create community engagement. So there's something in it for everyone, and that's why it's such an attractive future for the gambling industry. This is why regulators are eager to regulate it and to make sure that these protections are in place.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, and I really got that aspect from the primer, because always my thought process, who is the audience for skill-based gaming? And really, for the different games, it's really different people. I mean, the younger segments of the population like one thing. Older people like myself who spent the 80s in arcades playing Pac-Man and Space Invaders have another view of things. Is that what makes this segment of the gaming market so important and just an emerging market, that there's something for everyone in skill-based gaming?
Well, look, at the end of the day, casino gambling, table games, and slot machines, etc., that is a subset of the mm-hmm. games and content industry. So video gaming, the types of skill-based content we've been talking about is a much larger and more extensive demographic and group. At the end of the day, there's a lot of people that would rather, quote-unquote, bet on their skill versus play a game that is rigged, i.e. random number generator, yeah. Something they have arguably no control over the outcome, like a lottery. It's purely a game of chance. And so I think there's more people that would rather gamble on their own skill than simply leave it to a computer chip within a machine.
Certainly the technology is evolving and developing in the market. Are the marketing plans and the business models evolving for skill-based gaming operators as well? And how are these marketing plans and business models manifesting itself to the public? I mean, we certainly see sports betting operators advertising and giving bonuses and promotions. Are skill-based gaming operators learning from what sports betting operators are doing, or is it a totally different business model?
It's a different business model, Dave, mm-hmm. and what's interesting about it is sports betting companies and online casino companies have to spend a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds of dollars per customer, to attract them into their app so that they could garner thousands of dollars over a lifetime value. In the case of skill-based gaming, the acquisition costs and the strategies are very different and prove to be less expensive. If anything, online gaming has made it more expensive for skill-based gaming to acquire players, but it's still mm-hmm. significantly cheaper to acquire a skill-based customer than it is a real money gaming customer. And so the reason why you see real money gaming companies become more interested in skill-based companies, and some have made investments in that sector, FanDuel and DraftKings to name two, the reason is because they want to have access to customers that they could convert to real money gaming at a much lower value. This is why casino companies like MGM got into MyVegas using social casino, mm-hmm. which has a lower acquisition cost to convert them into real money. Well, the same thing with skill-based gaming. So I think it's a very valuable acquisition tool, but in and of itself, it's a community building. It's very conducive to social media, which is the world that we live in. And so the way you should look at skill-based gaming is the content is varied. It appeals to different demographics, and real money gaming operators, online and brick and mortar, want the ability to convert those customers into their environments in an inexpensive way. This is how I view it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. In terms of expansion, what can we expect from skill-based gaming in the United States? I mean, I always talk to casino operators, and one of their goals is to attract younger customers to their property. Do you think brick-and-mortar casinos will get more involved with skill-based gaming? Do they have a place on a casino's gaming floor?
Well, let's talk about first the digital strategies, sure, and then we'll talk about the brick and mortar. In the digital world, you're going to see and have already seen a convergence between skill-based gaming and digital online gaming, both in terms of investment, in terms of content. So the notion of adding skill elements to games of chance, you're seeing online in different ways. And I think it's very conducive to online. I think in terms of brick and mortar, we will see the slot floor of the future contain more arcade-style games, contain more skill-based peer-to-peer initiatives that follow on from what people are already comfortable doing online. So I do think the casino floors of the future will reflect this trend towards casual skill-based gaming and more sophisticated skill-based gaming. So I think the change will come from mobile back into the brick and mortar, not the other way around. And I think you see examples of it and elements of it already. Obviously, sports betting and fantasy and poker, those we can see more direct, examples of how that ties into a casino. There was an effort, if you may recall, maybe 10 years ago, and it wasn't successful. There were two companies, one of which was Gamblit, that spent hundreds of millions developing slot machines with skill elements, and it ended up failing. And the reason it failed is because it was neither a slot machine nor was it a true skill-based game. It was a made-up construct that the Nevada regulators came up with because they weren't comfortable embracing all-out skill-based gaming. But now, with AI and technology, it's a lot easier for regulators to regulate skill-based gaming. And once that occurs, you're going to see everything from peer-to-peer esports to literally, backgammon and chess and checkers and all kinds of different games, skill-based games across arcade-style games. You're going to see more and more of this become standard. There have been examples that have been moderately to not successful because they aren't full-scale skill-based. They're kind of a hybrid that didn't work with customers.
In your experience, do you see that regulators and gaming commissions are generally open to the idea of skill-based gaming? Or do you think more regulatory action needs to be required before it gets to casino floors?
Regulators are parents. Regulators are grandparents. They live in the world. They understand what young people and older people are doing on their mobile devices, whether it be esports or it be casual games like the ones we've mentioned. So because of that, they know it's a reality. I do think technology, the ability to monitor and ensure fairness, make it easier to adopt new products that are already appealing to people. I think gaming is doing a much better job than it used to in terms of, look at the advent of mobile payments in the casino, using wallets. That happened, COVID pushed that along, but that change occurred within a matter of months, whereas I've done studies that say the average time for innovation in the casino setting is about 11 years, and now we're doing things at light speed. And so I think technology, AI, all the things you've alluded to make it easier for regulators to get comfortable with new types of gambling. And I think we have to recognize that we live in a 360-degree world. If we're not careful, we could fall into the trap that, let's say, movie theaters or exhibition companies fall into, where people can get content with a push of a button. They can order anything they want or you can imagine, but we still want people, if you're a movie theater exhibitor, to come in and see a blockbuster. So if we're not careful, casinos can lose their attractiveness to successive generations if we don't respond to the fact that there's changing content that they're accessing mobily that they want to experience in addition to the other things they experience in a casino. So it's in everyone's interest to make use of this content everywhere approach and make sure that the casino of the future reflects that.
As I sit here in New Jersey, the state next to me, Pennsylvania, is having some real issues when it comes to games that some consider fall under the umbrella of skill-based gaming. And it's really created some headaches, especially for law enforcement. Explain what's happening in Pennsylvania, because just recently the courts had to get involved with regard to the issue of skill-based gaming.
Look, the issue there, and I know this because I've been privy to some discussions around this. You know, the premise that regulators have, and it's not necessarily a correct one, is that skill-based game is being populated by underage, delinquent gamblers.
Sure.
Okay? So that's the prism through which they view a lot of this. Obviously, there is some of that is occurring, but we have ways, as you know, to make sure, to the best of our ability, that gambling content or gaming content is aimed at the audience that we want to participate in it. So you can usually deal with KYC, age verification, and so forth. In terms of the actual content, again, I would say that there's lots of companies that act responsibly. There's lots of companies that really make sure that a game of skill is a game of skill. I mean, there are definitions, but there are companies that exploit the gray areas of what we would define as a game of skill. If it feels like a game of chance in any way, then it's illegal gambling to promote it. And so I think the struggle that Pennsylvania has comes from partly a knee-jerk reaction to, thinking that it's going to open up, Pandora's box in terms of underage gambling and things that they don't want to encourage. I think more other jurisdictions, and we could go through New Jersey, Nevada, Virginia, sure, Colorado, jurisdictions that are progressive on things like even using crypto and blockchain to run gaming enterprises. There's a lot of progressive thinking. I think those jurisdictions and others feel like it's happening. It's, you kind of know what a skill-based game is. You know that there's technology to make sure we're not having a robot versus a human, so to speak. We have a way to verify a result with almost 100% certainty, 100% of the time. So I think as technology has improved, as AI has allowed, to make sure things are fair and verifiable, I think the regulators are getting more comfortable. So I kind of view some of that as an outlier. I think the mainstream view is it's an inevitability. How do we deal with it the right way? This is how I see it.
Another state that you mentioned in the primer is Virginia. That's having a real issue with skill-based gaming. Over the last year, Virginia has seen incredible gambling expansion. They're opening casinos, they're having sports betting. However, they really seem to be struggling with the concept of skill-based gaming. Is it the age issue, like you said? Is that one of the sticking points for a lot of regulators and a lot of gaming commissions, the age issue, and what can we do to protect that?
That's a large part of it, number one. Number two, it's the issue of fairness. When you have companies investing, hundreds of millions of dollars on legalized gambling facilities or online, in the case of Pennsylvania, the issue is fairness. Is it fair to allow? It's like the internet cafes. It's like the distributed gaming slot routes. Is it fair to allow competition that isn't licensed when you're requiring so much of your licensed operators who are spending hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in infrastructure in your state. So it's an issue of equity. But to me, the issues around age verification and fairness, those can be dealt with. There needs to probably be a regulatory regime. It's like with sweepstakes, which is a form of online gaming that is using games of chance in a quote-unquote sweepstakes environment, and we've written about that. That's just an area that seems like an exception that follows the rule. In other words, because we haven't approved more iGaming, more companies, some of them not reputable, are coming into sweepstakes and ruining it for those that may be operating within the letter of the law. So now regulators want to regulate so there's an even playing field. So there's a lot of issues. One has to do with protecting citizens, which is what regulators are supposed to do, and ensuring fairness and verification and integrity. And some of it is being fair to those that submit to regulation and making sure that those that are playing by the rules are not having their business eroded by workarounds that evade the rules. So this is where we are. And I think what you'll end up having in skill-based is what we had in fantasy, is what we'll have in sweepstakes, is regulators will step in and say, these are the rules that's fair to everyone, including the consumer.
Well, as we start a new year, what do you think we should look for when it comes to skill-based gaming in 2024? Do you see an expansion of these games online and on mobile devices? Do you see casinos getting more involved with skill-based gaming? Where do you see the skill-based gaming market in 2024?
I think you're going to see much more activity, increasing activity, both in brick-and-mortar casinos as they embrace different implementations around arcade and skill-based style gaming. I think you'll see online gaming companies integrate more skill-based features. I think you'll see online gaming companies or real money gaming companies invest more in the skill-based sector as a way to enhance engagement, extend demographic reach, extend conversion and customer retention. I just think it's part of that 360-degree experience. It's part of content on demand. It's part of the convergence between sports, entertainment, skill-based, real money gaming, games of chance. It's all content that is connected and gamified. And this is why it's inevitable they'll come together under some consistent regulatory scheme to the greatest extent possible, state by state.
SCCG Management is always doing incredible work in the gaming industry, and you guys always seem to be working on really interesting things and really things that are important for the industry. What can we be looking forward to from SCCG Management in the near future? And I hear you're taking another trip now.
I am. I'm leaving tonight at midnight to go to Brazil. Brazil, the Senate just passed sports betting, and it's back to the House in Brazil to confirm or affirm. So it looks very certain that we'll have sports betting in the new year. It's possible we will have iGaming in casinos, but certainly it looks like sports betting is on its way to finalization. Regulations have been written. I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Brazil touching base with operators, top-tier operators, suppliers. I'm going to be meeting with, regulators and politicians, and I'm also going to be launching an MMA organization,
nice,
which will partner with sports books and partner with the soccer teams in Brazil called Versus FC. So I'm excited about getting involved directly in creating sports content through MMA. And then I'll return back to Vegas to revel with the other crazy people on the Las Vegas Strip, and I'll dust off my garment bag and then hit the road. Next year, we have trips planned already to India, where we're on the ground floor of the evolution towards real money gaming in India. We're involved with the skill-based gaming companies there and doing some really significant work there. And then off to Europe for most of February for the Ice Gaming Show and to meet client partners all throughout Europe. So next year, to me, is going to be about the U.S. Continued expansion, the launch of Lady Luck HQ Social Casino with SCCG as their partner, number one slot influencer in the world. We'll be hitting Brazil, India, Europe. So it'll be more of the same, just more and more. And more research reports. We've got loyalty marketing coming up next. That's a customer retention, customer acquisition is a hugely significant. It is the heart of the gaming industry in the future, and we're going to cover that in our next primer.
Stephen, we're running out of time, but the primer on skill-based gaming in the U.S. from SCCG Research is just incredible and an absolute must-read for a lot of people out there. Where can people download it and give out the website from SCCG Management so people can find out all the things SCCG Management is doing in the gaming industry?
Thank you, Dave. It's very simple, sccgmanagement.com. You can access the 9 research reports we've done this year. And we expect to do the same next year, and that could be your home base for knowledge about the sports betting, casino, iGaming business worldwide.
Stephen Crystal, CEO and founder of SCCG Management, who just put out the great primer on skill-based gaming in the U.S. Thanks for coming on and talking about it. I think skill-based gaming is the future of the gaming and casino industry in this country, and it's an issue that everyone's going to be talking about in the future and into the new year. Stephen, as always, thanks for coming on. I can't wait to talk to you again because you always have amazing projects that you're working on. Thanks for your time today and safe travels.
Thank you, Dave. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. That'll do it for us this week. We'll see you next time on the Turnpike.